More than 25 years in the game of broadcasting, Richard Nwamba still going strong and still supporting African music. He's a well-known radio personality, an expert on all things African, a playwright, a producer, and he's here to talk to us about his life story, love for music, radio. Mr. Richard Nwamba, good to be with you, my friend.
Thanks, Tim.
Excellent. Well, I just felt like I must catch up with my old friend and colleague, Richard Nwamba from SAfm.
Yes.
Still going strong.
No, thank you. But you'll be happy to know that you inspired me. You and the late Mahale Mafatsi.
Yeah.
You inspired me to do what I do. Because he did something that was literally pioneer work at the beginning, of playing the music of the rest of the continent, which was unheard of in South Africa during apartheid, as you know.
Yes.
It was either Western music or South African music.
Yes.
Nothing. And so I used to listen to him religiously every Sunday whenever he was on air. He would speak in Setswana and I would miss some of the words, but I still... And one day, of course, as you know, I also followed in his footsteps.
Yes, yes. And that's a fantastic thing. I mean, world music, you source it from all over the continent, all around the world.
Yes. I was quite fortunate because in the beginning, when I was still a high school teacher, I used to collect the music, maybe just a little bit of background. I was born in Mozambique and I came here in 1975. And that was a wrong time for a black man from another African country to come to this country. And so obviously, when I was still living at Nelspruit, which was closer to the border with Mozambique, I could hear Radio Mozambique and I could hear Brazilian music and the music from other African countries as well. But as soon as I moved into Johannesburg in 1977, then that was it. So I started to really long to hear African music. And when I qualified as a teacher in 1981, I started teaching in 1982. And then whenever I would get paid, I would go to Kohino, down Commissioner Street, and I would buy LPs of Fela Nikulapkuti, Segun Adewale, all these African giants. And there used to be a magazine just across the road at CNA then that used to be called Black Music and Soul, BM, I think it was called BM and S, Black Music and Soul. And it would cover the music of Africans. It was a British magazine. Maybe it would have about 4 or 5 pages, but I would devour it, literally. Whenever I would find any book on African music, I would buy it, not knowing that one day I'd be a broadcaster.
And you didn't have any dreams? Oh, you just buying for yourself, for
just
your own
enjoy
personal enjoyment.
So, and then of course, what happened in 1993, there was a competition run by then Radio South Africa, today SAfm. It was organized by COSO, which stood for, I think it still stands for Congress of South African Writers. And so I entered that radio playwriting competition and I won the 3rd award, which was a very important thing for me. I'd never written a radio play in my life. And there were 263, if I'm not mistaken, entrants. And I was the only one from Soweto. There's a guy from Port Nolloth that had won the 2nd prize, and Julie Fredericks, who also eventually became part of SAfm. She won the 1st prize. And so they called me to say, look, Richard, would love you to come here and be a broadcaster. And I said, me? I'd never worked on radio before. What makes you think I'm going to do well? I said, oh, you talk too much. You'll be fine. I had been a high school teacher for 10 years and being a musician, I always wanted to enter the arts full time. But when you have a bond, and I'm a family man, I have a wife and kids, I thought, what's going to happen here?
You've got to get your priorities right. Huh?
But fortunately for me, I've been married to this woman for the past 33 years that she has been an anchor for me. My wife, Melinda, she would support me all the time. And she said, look, if you're unhappy, I don't want you to die. Rather you quit. I'd rather have a poor husband than to have
a dead husband.
A dead husband. And so she encouraged me to quit, and I quit. So when the SAfm asked me to join them, and I said, okay, I'm not so sure about this thing of me being a broadcaster. And they gave me a program called All That Jazz. It used to be 11:30 to midnight every Sunday. And after 3 months, I said, guys, I'm so sorry, I don't like jazz. I don't know anything about jazz, anything anyway. And so they said, okay, what would you like to do? And I said, unless you give me a program on African music. You have to remember that Radio South Africa, when it was Radio South Africa, they used to play classical music, Baroque. None of the noise music.
English highbrow type programming,
even the presenters, they had to have that posh English.
That's it.
And so the idea of having me play African music in that, they were thinking, this guy's going to alienate the whites who used to listen to SAfm. And so they gave me a program called two people with rhythm, with Shemaine Davis, Shemaine Harris. She became Shemaine Harris later on. But we would fight about, your song was longer than mine, so I'm going to talk more.
Yes.
You started, so I was, after 3 months, I said, I want a divorce.
Because the creativity and
You know?
the energy that you need when
Yes.
you have a two-hander was not there, I suppose. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Nigel Fermas and Jack Malender, who were then the station manager and the programs manager, said, what would you like to do? And I said, give me a program on African music alone. And I said, okay, what would you like to call it? And I said, The African Connection. I remember there was a gentleman called Caleb Tontlana from Zimbabwe, who was one of the, I think he was one of the managers there. And he said, no, that sounds like the mafia. Nigel Fermas said, no. Let him call it what he wants.
Yes.
And they allowed me to. And so I started presenting The African Connection. But guess what? I would play songs from Madagascar.
Yeah.
And I would tell stories about what informs that song. For instance, in Madagascar, they've got this tradition called Famadihana. Now, Famadihana is something that doesn't happen in the rest of the African continent. What happens is that when you're dead, they believe that after 10 or 5 years or 20 years, you become tired of sleeping on one side. Your bones have to be dug up.
Okay, and be turned around.
And be turned around. So it's called the turning of the bones.
Yes.
That's what it's called.
Yes.
But in Malagasy language, it's called Famadihana. So I would tell stories about these Mpibeko singers, you know? Those people who, when they do that, and they would have something called, beko, these zebus or goats, and they would slaughter the goats, have that ceremony. They would have to have someone who was so good at singing, according to what they believe, that he would appease the spirits of the ancestors.
Okay, they make the ancestors happy. Listening to the sweet
so in other words, the
melodies.
Can't be mediocre. It has to be very good. So the Malagasy started to develop that kind of singing based on that tradition. And that's why some of the best singers in Africa are Malagasy.
Okay.
And so I would tell stories like those. And the very same white people that they were scared of, they would phone SAfm management and said, we like these stories that this guy is telling. Why do we have to sleep so late to listen to this guy? Give him a better time slot.
And that's how you went to the daytime now.
Exactly. So it shows that when it comes to music, music doesn't care whether you're black or African or whatever. If it hits you, it hits you.
It's a human language.
Exactly.
It's universal.
So, and that's how eventually, talking about, I want to answer that question that you said about how I traveled around the world. And then the former CEO of the late Zweleka Sisulu was listening. So one day I get a call from him and he says, Richard, I get a call from the secretary. And she says, Mr. Sisulu wants to speak to me. And I said, what have I done now? If I've done something wrong, why does it have to be the CEO calling me?
Why doesn't he send somebody else?
Smaller, for me to talk to. And so he doesn't call me. A week goes past, and a second week. On the third week, I just happened to get into the SABC, and he was getting out. And as it goes in with all this trepidation, I intercept him and I say, Mr. Sisulu, my name is Richard Nwamba. And he says, oh yes, I like what you're doing on radio. I wanted to do what you're doing on radio and television as well. Just like that. And you know, as it happened, in about 3 weeks, I had a budget. In about a month, I was already traveling to go and get, just so I should have my program, The African Connection on SABC2. And that's how I literally started traveling the world, because now I had enough budget to do that. And suddenly people...
And you were connected to this, the CEO after all, who said you should do the job.
Exactly. You know, that's how fortunate I am. But then eventually people in France, in Portugal, in Belgium, and even in the United States, they knew about this guy in South Africa who plays African music. So whenever they would have new releases, they would send them to me. And literally right now, there was a time when I had more CDs of African music than the SABC. Of course, today the SABC has far more. But it was the people who were buying CDs there.
We're not buying that music, you're buying it yourself.
Exactly. You know. But even today, I still use, for the 2 programs that I do on SAfm and on Channel Africa, I still use my CDs because I have one of the largest collections of African music, maybe in this country.
Oh, well, wonderful story. And I love it. And Rich, I appreciate that we caught up. You know my favorite song? I have to tell you my story. Just briefly. It's Beasts of No Nation by fella Alikulapo. I love that song. I really love it.
Oh my goodness. But you inspired me. I remember listening to you play Teacher Don't Teach Me Nonsense by Felani Kulakuta as well.
Yes, yes.
And it was 25 minutes and 40 seconds and we played in.
Of
And I said,
course.
if I go on radio, I'm going to do the same thing. So I do the same
You know, I was told, you can't play that song for that long. I said, why? I said, no, it's too long. I said, well, that's the way it is.
Yes.
You see, I can't change it.
Yes.
If you want to appreciate it, it's even nicer at 22
Yes,
minutes. So
yes.
which part do you want?
Exactly.
So what time is your show, Rich, so we can follow you?
Well, on SAfm, it's every Saturday from 1 to 3.
Yeah.
Saturday, 1 to 3 in the evening, obviously.
Sure.
And then on Channel Africa, it's 6 to 8, and there's a repeat on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
6 to 8 on the evening. So I'm so delighted that SABC has given me a chance to show this love, or share this love that I have of
Yes.
African music with the rest of South Africa, and nowadays through the internet with the rest of the world.
Before we part ways, tell me, you are writing a thesis, you're writing something, you're studying
Yes.
the whole story. Tell me, what are you studying now and what are you busy with?
I'm doing a master's, and my dissertation is called Modise Africa.
Yeah.
The challenges of broadcasting the music of Africa in South Africa from 1978 to 1994 as a tribute to the late Makgale Mafatshe.
There you
You
go.
will be among the people that I'll come and say, please, how did you work with him? What inspired him to do this program on African music and so on and so on? And so literally it's my way of literally paying homage to someone who
Sure.
was not recognized.
Yeah.
But he did wonders to change the musical landscape of this country.
And you've been a foot soldier in the struggle trying to get African music, South African music played. Today, there you are with 90% now being playlisted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've been given a bit of, since I played the music of the rest of the continent, I've been given 50%
Okay, so
local, 50%.
Well, you should continue.
But it still is fine.
Still the same.
Yes.
Anyway, but much appreciated.
Thank you so much,
Richard
Richard.
Nwamba, man of many talents, and as you notice, we just stuck to one part of his talented life. So next time we'll be talking about other parts of his life. Thank you again, Richard.
My pleasure.
And we hope that you enjoyed this chat, and we wish you everything of the best. We invite you to be with us again next time.